This Fed Gov Today program is sponsored by Google Public Sector and Carasoft. On this edition of Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose, the Air Force's AI inventory is underway, managing traffic at the intersection of legacy systems and artificial intelligence, and a potential budget boost coming for cyber sustainment. Welcome to Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose. An artificial intelligence inventory is underway at the Air Force. Airmen, guardians, and civilians from the Air Force and Space Force can register their AI projects and use cases with the service's Office of the Chief Information Officer. Venus Goodwine is the Air Force CIO. She's brought some members of her leadership team with her. Venus, welcome. It's good to see you. Tell me who we have on this stage with us today. Welcome.
Well, Francis, thank you. It's always exciting to bring my team, because you know doing this is I don't do it alone. I have a power team behind me. So I have first to my left is Aaron Bishop, who is the Chief Information Security Officer for the department. And then I have Dr. Keith Hardiman in his new role as Director of Enterprise IT. And then I have Ms. Chandra Donelson, who is our Acting Chief Data and AI Officer. So we're excited to be here today.
Welcome to all of you, and I'll look forward to talking to all of you. I mentioned the AI inventory that's underway. What does that consist of, and what do you want people in the services to bring to you?
Yes. So I will tell you, initially, as you know, when AI first started, everyone ran to the soccer bowl. But we quickly learned that we needed to take a step back and understand the technology and actually put some guardrails to protect our airmen and guardians and the data within the department. And so in doing that, we issued some policy. But now as we have progressed in this AI technology, we have quickly learned that, okay, the guardrails are in place. Now we need to use AI for its intended use, which is to help with productivity, to actually help with decision making. And so that's why I have Ms. Chandra here, Donelson here, that's going to help us. She'll talk to you in her role about AI governance and our AI efforts writ large. You'll hear Dr. Hardiman talk in his role as Director of Enterprise IT, what's in his portfolio. And then you'll also hear Aaron talk about the cybersecurity of all of that helped us with those guardrails. And so this AI launch point that we established, kudos to my team for doing it so quickly, was a single source of truth for airmen and guardians to come to that website, to understand all the strategy, the policy, the guidance, but more importantly, as you mentioned, to register their AI tools. One, so we'll understand what's happening in our environment, in the enterprise around AI, what investments are being made, what type of skill sets we have. And so the inventory allows us to do just that. But more importantly, it also helps us understand so we don't have duplicative capabilities. We can build upon different AI capabilities as well. So the launch point is exactly what the airmen and guardians need today.
Aaron, welcome. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Where is the Air Force on its security journey, both regarding AI, as Venus talked about a moment ago, and more broadly on the zero trust journey that the department is on, OCIO aiming for full implementation by 2027?
Well, thank you for the question. From an AI perspective, we're really looking at how can we find the intersection between innovation that our airmen and guardians bring to the table, and then being able to protect ourselves both ethically and from a security perspective so that we can trust that technology in its implementation. Zero trust is a fascinating journey that we're on right now. I can tell you that our leadership is very involved, all the way up to our secretary, who recently signed out our implementation plan for the department. And we're focused on things like replacing our technologies at the networking layers for software-defined networking. We're focused on identity management. It's a pillar of zero trust, and it's something we have to get right with the department. In addition to that, we're also starting to work with our Chief Data and AI Officer about data tagging and efforts to drive zero trust to our goal in 2027.
Keith, welcome. Congratulations on your new portfolio. What does it encompass? What will you be delivering for the department? Everything is not the right answer.
Everything's not the right answer. Okay, I was going to show that out as a
right.
First
I can
one,
understand that.
No, I appreciate it, and really looking forward to the opportunity to serve in the DAF CIO's office. But my portfolio consists of resourcing, IT investment, portfolio management. We're talking about cloud migration, workforce management, talent management in those lines, and budget and investment. And so with those, I would say, major buckets, I've got plenty of work to go do. I think just going by what the Secretary's wishes are when it comes to alignment with the great power competition, it's critical that we have not only a strong but a resilient foundation, which is our IT infrastructure. And so those are some of the things I'll be keying up on to help us with standardizing it and providing an enterprise approach so we don't have any gaps or any vulnerabilities within that landscape. Additionally, I'd like to mention that the investment piece, as we go part of talking about modernizing and standarding, we can look at those investments we currently have out there that are disparate and bring those back into the fold where we can actually recapitalize and realize those investments to help out our warfighter, enable them to do their mission and promote readiness.
Chandra, welcome and congratulations in your role. I noticed you nodding enthusiastically 2 different times in particular when Keith was talking about resiliency and when Venus was when Aaron was talking about data tagging. Why are those areas that are particularly noteworthy to you, things that you're enthusiastic about?
No, thank you so much for the question. I would say they're the foundation of everything we do. So some of my priorities for the first, I would say, few days here or so have been data governance, AI governance, as well as AI innovation. So when we talk about governance, a lot of people are kind of hesitant about that piece, right? But I think governance is so important. I like to use the analogy about traffic signals. So there was a time in the world where traffic signals were not standardized everywhere you went. So can you imagine navigating from across the United States to include different countries? So it made it very challenging. So when I think about the governance piece, we want to make sure that everyone has a common understanding for data as well as AI, which also means, going back to what some of the others have stated, we need to also understand what we have in our portfolio where that AI inventory is going to be so key for us. The other piece is AI governance. So some of the work that we are doing there, as well as we have the Gen AI Tiger team that has been set up to establish what that process is going to look like to approve Gen AI capabilities to come into the department. So we have a process that is in place now, but we do want to bring our partners to the table as well to give them the opportunity to share their expertise, so government, industry, and academia, to help us further refine that. And then from a Gen AI innovation piece, there's a lot of talk and energy around AI right now, I think, across the board. No pressure, and I'm not busy at all. But absolutely loving it. So one of the things that we have been working on the past week with the team is how do we create a process to enable us to test and research and develop different Gen AI capabilities quick and early in the process. So we're getting ready to establish a Gen AI innovation lab with Keith here and some of the other partners here where we can provide that platform. So I asked our partners, we want to run fast, but we want to learn fast, and I look forward to getting those initiatives off the ground.
How will you judge, Venus, whether these efforts are successful, whether you're getting the information, for example, out of the inventory, whether you're getting the comprehensive view that I imagine you're going for, all those kinds of things?
Well, a couple of things to build upon what Chandra mentioned. One, data governance is going to be important. We've established a data governance framework, and so making sure that the data that's added to the inventory, one, is accurate. But the best feedback is going to be from our airmen and guardians, and they're going to tell us, trust me, what's working and what's not working, because user experience is still a top priority for myself, for our leadership, and as well for DoD. The other thing that Chandra mentioned, and I want to build upon, is partnering with industry. We want to make sure that we build a partnership so that we can learn. And then the other piece is we started with our current investments. We'd already have investments in our environment, rather it's our innovation landing zone that she mentioned, because we already had said investment in our DAF data fabric. So we started there to build out these capabilities, and then we'll spread that across our department using, again, the AI inventory and the feedback from our airmen and guardians to let us know whether we're hitting the mark and where we need to address. And then again, the policy piece is going to be important. Again, the policy are just guardrails to protect the airmen and guardians, but also to protect the Air Force's data.
We have about a minute left in this part of the conversation, Venus. It sounds like right now you're mostly focused inwardly. At what point will you bring in industry and academia and the other stakeholders to involve them in this ongoing conversation about AI?
Exactly. That's why I have these exact leaders here, because Aaron is going to make sure there's security, Dr. Hardiman is going to make sure we have the funding, and Chandra's going to make sure that we have the AI governance, and then she will set up that framework in which we'll bring in partners to help us solve some really tough problems. We talk about AI from our everyday AI, which helps us with productivity, but we're looking for some game-changing AI as well that'll help our warfighters at the tactical edge.
All right, you stand by. You're going to join me later in the program. Aaron, Keith, Chandra, thanks very much for being in this part of the conversation. You can read more about all the AI projects and all the other projects you heard about on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Coming next, managing traffic at the intersection of legacy systems and AI. FedGov Today with Francis Rose is back in a moment. Here's Netscope Federal Security Architect Mark Mitchell from Innovation in Government at HIMSS, presented by Carasoft.
The evolution is really happening around AI and ML. So as an example for data protection, we use deep learning, machine learning to enable agencies to build or train their own classifiers. So you can take a sample of 20 to 30 artifacts and it will create a classifier to help you identify that intellectual property, forms, whatever it may be, and then you can apply that to those different channels that a user may be interacting with, either sanctioned cloud services or, let's say, unsanctioned cloud services.
For more, go to innovationingov.com. Welcome back. Agencies are on month 6 of a 10-year digital transformation journey. Guidance the Office of Management and Budget calls delivering a digital-first public experience is the roadmap for that journey. Troy Bertram's Executive Managing Director for the Public Sector Partner Ecosystem at Google Public Sector. Troy, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. There are a lot of challenges that agencies are running into along the lines of the things that Venus and her team just talked about. They're working on artificial intelligence. They're working on cutting-edge technologies. A lot of agencies are trying to graft those technologies onto legacy systems that they've had around for a long time. What does that transition look like in your experience for a lot of agencies?
The transition is a journey. It's learning, enabling the partner ecosystem, because many of our agencies, whether it's state and local government or educational institutions or the federal government, they've had systems integrators, they've had partners, resellers in their environments for decades. So it's also training and enabling and working with those systems integrators on the latest and greatest technology. Also understanding that we are in a hybrid environment. We're in a multi-cloud environment, meeting the government customer where they are today in their journey and ensuring that paths to contracting, procurement, training, and recruiting are all important. It's about recruiting the next generation of the workforce, whether that's into our partner ecosystem or it's also into government, and ensuring that the technology underpinnings of cybersecurity, workforce development, as well as platforms that enable collaboration across environments, critically important.
A lot of discussion about collaboration all across the government. What does healthy collaboration from the agency perspective look like, and what does that look like from the industry perspective? What helps industry help agencies the most in your view?
It's a feedback loop, right? It's pilots, proof of concepts, moving away from the legacy way of procurement that took years to work through an RFP to now pilots, proof of concept, demonstration of capabilities, working with incumbent partners or those that are looking at building software applications, ISVs. We support partners, whether they're build, service, or sell partners out of my business, because it is an ecosystem. It's those that are building, enabling on top of the platform in a very secure manner and ensuring that globally we can meet all of the emerging customer requirements.
The agencies that are doing a good job at moving from the old model to the model you just talked about, what are they doing to do that? What makes you say, yes, they get it, and they're moving toward this kind of model that is more effective?
It's collaboration with industry, right? As Venus and team were alluding to, it's sharing. It's providing the vision and the mission and enabling their teams to go work across industries and explaining where the outcomes are. We're talking about a 10-year vision. We don't have time to wait. It's what can we do now? What can we prove out now, pilot, test, and ensure that cybersecurity underpinnings are front and center. And that's exactly what Google Cloud is endeavoring to do with our partners and our customers.
We have about a minute left. Troy, what have you seen agencies do to reach that speed goal, but also to hit the outcomes that they want? Are both possible at the same time?
Both are possible and both are essential. The outcomes have to be upfront. How do you measure, innovate, think about what that mission outcome is, and ensure that we've ensured that our routes to market are encompassing of how government wants to buy and consume. Variable cloud costs is really hard in a firm fixed price era. So we've enabled our partners through a public sector subscription agreement to get that consumption-based economics into a firm fixed price, and it's a new way to think about cloud.
For a long time, with 30 seconds, for a long time the conversation was, how does industry get government to do things the way that industry does? It sounds like you've kind of flipped that. How can industry best meet what the government's equipped to do? Is that a fair read?
That's a fair read when it comes to how does government buy and acquire technology. On the other side, it's speed to innovation is hard for all of us to keep up with. So how do we work with universities that are training and teaching the next generation of workforce, whether it's first responders, state and local government, federal workforce, ensuring that the technology that we use in our everyday lives that Google's been providing for years in a very secure manner, and we've invented a lot of that tech. How do we bring that to bear in government?
It's great to have you on the program, Troy. Thanks for your time today.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
You can read more about digital transformation on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, a potential budget boost coming for cyber sustainment. Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment. Explore the power of artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and digital innovations in healthcare. Watch Innovation in Government from HIMSS, available on demand. Learn from leaders at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Defense Health Agency, and more. Don't miss this exclusive insight into the future of government and healthcare innovation. Watch anytime at fedgovtoday.com or the Fed Gov Today YouTube channel, sponsored by Carasoft. Welcome back. The Air Force's budget request for cyber defenses and sustainment for fiscal 2025 is nearly $250 million. That's an increase of more than $25 million over fiscal 2024. Air Force CIO Venice Goodwine is back with more leaders from the Office of the CIO. Venice, introduce me to the team that you have here this time around.
Absolutely. Thank you, Francis. So this is not our B team. This is the best part of our team. And so the first part, you saw me introduce the directorates within our OCO office, but now I have to my left the Deputy CIO, Mr. Winston Beauchamp, and then I also have Ms. Keisha Webb, who is actually leading our DAF mission partner environment as a senior leader.
Welcome to both of you. Winston, I start with you. Tell me, I mentioned the budget request. Where are the big investments that OCIO in the Air Force would like to make in fiscal 2025?
Thanks for the question. So our budget request starts with the foundational capabilities that we provide to every Guardian and Airman across the Department of the Air Force. So here we're talking about network access, long-haul communications, base infrastructure, cloud and data center storage and processing that enable us to get our missions done, and the core cybersecurity that surrounds all of those networks and systems. Then on top of that, we build our IT modernization efforts. So think there about base infrastructure modernization, moving to a modern infrastructure, as well as our zero trust investments that you heard Mr. Bishop talk about earlier. That's a significant initiative for us as well. On top of that, we build our DAF data fabric that you heard Ms. Donelson talk about, and the AI tools that are going to help us take work out of people's lives and streamline our processes.
All of those issues that you just talked about are the same kinds of things that airmen and guardians were discussing, let's say, during Fix Our Computers, which came out of the Air Force. It sounds like you're directing those resources to those issues as much as you possibly can. Is that a fair read on my part?
That's right. The Secretary of the Air Force made a significant investment last year in upgrading the laptops and the computers that people use on a day-to-day basis. And now we're starting to move up market to make sure that we can put those resources to best use.
And Keisha, welcome. It's great to see you.
Thank
What
you.
is the mission partner environment, and how does it connect to the work that the team that we've met so far on the show does?
So the mission partner environment is strategic and operational at the same time. The mission partner environment is an operating framework that enables our mission partners and our joint force to communicate. This is normally done through an MPE capability with particular partners, also known as communities of interest. So that could be with Australia, UK, or a combination of those, and also at the correct security level.
So this environment's responsible for not just communicating across the joint force vertically,
yes,
or horizontally, I guess, but vertically with our partners around the world? Is
absolutely,
that correct?
Around the world, to include law enforcement, academia, the defense industrial base. Our mission partners span all those levels of communication that we need to have in connectivity through all the military phases of operation from 0 to 5.
What are the tools that you need to execute on the mission of your office?
Those tools include understanding the policy, the capability, the investments that are made across the Department of the Air Force to try to understand what we need for our Guardians and Airmen.
As kind of the COO, it strikes me, of the DAF CIO office, you're executing on a lot of the things that Venus is leading. What are the big things that you need, not budget-wise necessarily, maybe it's bandwidth, maybe it's workforce, any of that, in order to be able to implement what of your colleagues are going after?
Well, certainly development of the workforce is a key priority. One of the things that we have emphasized over the past year and a half is the strength of the workforce that we have today, but also the need to continue to expand the skill base and extend deeper into the recruiting pool that we draw from to refresh the workforce. And so that means we are expanding the classes that are available to our existing workforce, and we're expanding our recruiting efforts to make sure that we can get both civilians coming from university programs and certificate programs, as well as our uniformed partners on the military side. One of the great ways of doing that is by expanding into recruiting warrant officers for the cyber portfolio.
Venus, when I used the term bandwidth a moment ago, I was talking about capacity and not the actual bandwidth stuff that I know you and all the services rely on. But yes, when you think about that, when we've talked pretty extensively, you and I, in the past about workforce situations, where are you as far as the amount of capacity, the amount of human bandwidth that you have in the technology sector in the Air Force versus where you would like to be?
Well, so that's exciting. And so I will tell you, recently our secretary just announced 25 key decisions under the umbrella of re-optimizing for great power competition. And part of that, one of the LOEs was people. We talked about readiness of the people. We talked about power projection and organization. But key to the people piece is what Winston just mentioned, is reestablishing the warrant officer program for the Department of the Air Force, specifically for the Air Force at this point, because of the bandwidth that you mentioned, looking for that highly trained, highly technical workforce that can help us prepare and be ready for a great power competition. And so everything you've heard from my team, rather it's the data, the AI, rather it's the mission partner environment with our coalition partners, rather it's the inventory that we're using for AI, or even what Dr. Hardiman mentioned in portfolio management, and definitely cybersecurity. All of that is preparing us to take a look at how do we ensure we are prepared and re-optimizing for great power competition. So the dollars that we spend are spent on the right strategic environments, and then we know that foundationally that's going to definitely be our workforce. And so making sure we understand the workforce that we have, the workforce that we need, and then addressing those gaps in every decision that we make going forward.
I want to address that idea of readiness, because we didn't talk about it in the first part of this conversation, and you've brought it up now a couple of times, then and now. And I wonder what readiness looks like when you think, when you're strategizing for readiness from a technology perspective in the Air Force. What does that look like to you, Venus?
From an IT perspective, from my sense, is making sure that the infrastructure is ready, that I have resilient, ready, that infrastructure, that the critical infrastructure is going to be there if I want to project power from any installation. I want to make sure, you know, from my CIO perspective, that every system, every capability that Airmen and Guardians need, that I enable that, rather that's through strategy, policy, governance, and oversight, or rather that's actual investments I make from an enterprise perspective that my Airmen and Guardians then take that and use at the tactical edge. So readiness is when the time comes that you are in fact ready. And we have a readiness command that's being established to do just that under our re-optimizing great power competition. And so it's that piece from my perch, but it ties into the writ large readiness of the department.
Keisha, take those threads and run with them as you're engaging engaging with your mission partners, both United States and international. What does readiness mean to you, and how do you apply the concepts that Venus just laid out in order to kind of spread that idea out and let those partners know the Air Force is indeed ready to do what it might need to do?
Yes, part of it is ensuring that, as Ms. Goodwine said, that we have the right capabilities in place, right? Understanding what we need, when we need, and how we need it. And then having those resilient global capabilities, secure capabilities, the right cyber posture, the right cyber hygiene in place to ensure that the capabilities are ready for day one if something is to happen.
Same question to you, Winston. What is your role in ensuring the readiness that Venus just laid out?
Primarily, it's to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place with the resilience and redundancy and backup, so that when if a conflict were to break out, that we would be able to respond according to the threat as it exists, and react accordingly and protect our folks, as well as complete the mission as required.
Venus, we have about a minute left. How do you track that on an ongoing basis so that you don't get to a point, okay, we're ready now, and then tomorrow comes, and the next day comes, and the next day comes, and things obviously change on an ongoing basis? How do you make sure that you stay on top of all of the things that you need to stay on top of?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I don't do it singularly. It's a whole of DAF issue, so I work with all and collaborate with my partners within the department to ensure that I understand their requirements and I respond to their requirements. And we track that through a number of systems, through a number of governance bodies, but the demand signal definitely comes from the warfighter, and then we respond in kind to the requirements that they have. And so again, making sure that we spend our dollars on the right strategic priorities. Every dollar saved in the portfolio of Dr. Hardiman means a warfighting capability. So making sure that we understand the requirements, we're definitely watching all of our investments and making sure they're delivering as expected, but then also making sure that we eliminate duplicative capability when it's not needed, or spending twice on capabilities that we should not. And so we have in our organization all those things in partnership across the DAF to do that. And so you know what it says, what gets measured is what gets done, and so we owe it to our senior leaders to give them, through their governance process as well, what we're doing with IT and where we are meeting our requirements. And if we're not meeting those requirements, then we offer where we could do, some compensating opportunity there. But it definitely is a whole of DAF issue. I am one part, a cog in this wheel, I'd like to say, in order for us, if the need comes, that we are ready. And that's what the Secretary of the Air Force has asked us to do. Venus,
Winston, Keisha, thanks very much for joining me. I appreciate it. You can find a link to information about all of those programs and projects on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today continues in a moment. Here's Jim Richburg, head of cyber policy at Fortinet and Fortinet Federal board member, from the program Zero Trust In Depth, presented by Fortinet Federal.
The good news is this is a partnership in the sense that government does a really good job creating frameworks, technical reference architecture, strategies, whether they're for the entirety of government with the OMB memo or DoD's strategy. They may have the hardest job. All the implementation tools, and Paul talked about this, are commercial solutions. They don't make their own stuff. They implement it. So we're providing this. So the good news is this really has helped to advance progress on something that is a concept we all agreed was a good idea.
To learn more, go to fedgovtoday.com/indepth. FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10:30. I'm Francis Rose. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.